Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table.
Welcome back. You are listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info at yourmoneyontap.com. My name's Seth Cressman here with Ben Brayshaw and Dan Mickelin. Good to see you guys today.
Good to see you, Seth. Good to see you. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing well. We got a little reminder that spring is not here in New Hampshire, so we're kind of fighting our way through that this morning. Otherwise, feeling great.
I was listening to my daughter talk about how she was in a snow squall, and I was like, "Well, how much snow?" She's like, "Well, that's about an inch on the ground in about a half hour." I was like, "Well, that's a snowstorm." That's not a squall.
We get like 5 inches coming Friday, Saturday. It's miserable.
The rule of thumb for New England is when you think that spring is coming, there's going to be another snowstorm. When you're like, oh gosh, when's that last snowstorm going to happen? Next thing you know, you turn around, it's July. So then you've fallen for the traditional event.
I'm wondering if you guys ever have like Easter, the eggs just laying around on the snow.
No, we've had snow on Easter for sure. Oh, a number of times. We hide eggs inside.
Oh, well, okay. I guess that's possible, right? The Easter Bunny knows no bounds. Well, if you're new to Money on Tap, we're glad you're here. We have a really great show ahead of us today, and we're going to be talking about Young Money, the guide to next generation wealth. And we have just a number of our clients that we work with that come to us and say, hey, we really want to try to prepare, and what can we do to really help our kids or our grandkids start to work through some financial literacy? Not just understand, hey, there's go to work and use the 401k plan. What are the other pieces that are important around finances and building wealth or maintaining wealth is the other part of that as well. When we have generations passing on wealth, what does this next generation need? How do they need to be prepared to do what they need to do? So that's one of the topics that we have a pleasure of bringing to you today. And you know what? I want to just thank you, first of all, when you're out there and you're listening to us in the podcast world, thank you for the subscribes. Thank you for taking the time to leave us a review and give us some stars. That helps us out at Money on Tap to just continue to do what we do on a weekly basis. We love bringing you content. We love bringing the ideas that some of you, our clients, or not even our clients sometimes, just listeners are working through and wanting some answers or some recommendations for how to work through personal finance, how to work through retirement and different parts and pieces of, a really vast conversation. And so that gives us plenty of material. We've been doing this since 2016. I think we're coming up on darn near 300 Money on Tap episodes, and it's just going to be a lot of fun today to dive in more with you.
I'm really, we have talked to so many people who have said, I really need my kids, their spouses. I need everyone to really understand how to manage and handle money, and it's a constant question, guys, right? I mean, we have it almost from everyone, and we encourage people, well, bring your kids in for your meetings, let them get familiar with it. But then there's this kind of off kilter feeling that they don't want to necessarily disclose everything they have to their kids because they don't want to request for money. And I totally get that too. So, this show is for you if you really want to pass that on to your kids, because there's so many financial literacy items that are not taught in schools anymore. They're not taught in any domain, and people are searching for information, and then their kids, they're just like, well, I don't have the time to do that. I'm raising my children. I'm going to college. I'm running around to baseball games and soccer games, and I just can't really meet the time to become an expert on finances or even understand it. I just put money in my retirement plan, and guess what? That grows. I put it in my 401k every week, and that's how I do it. This show is for you. This show is for you to pass on to somebody. This show is for you to try to help people understand the topics that they might find and discover that they're, maybe not as strong on, and really where to, dive deeper. So I'm excited about that, and I think this is going to be a show we pass on to a lot of people to say, hey, give this to your kids.
Well, we're going to have to pack it in here. And with that, it is time for Money in the News.
Up first here today from Steven Soros at Fox Business. Hertz CEO Stephen Scherr resigns after EV push goes bust. This was a big story a while back when Hertz had made the commitment to kind of divest from the gas-powered rental car fleet into the EV world. And, like everything else with EVs, it seems like that was poorly timed. And it's just a little bit ahead of what the combination with the public's ready for, what we're able to afford, and just the practicality of it. And that has cost CEO Steve Scherr his job. One of these EV gambles that really just did not pay out. But Hertz, one of the largest 4 rental car companies in the world, is going to have to replace its CEO following this move. Some of the major issues that they ran into were simply the fact that it's very, very expensive to repair and maintain these cars. And there's all these hidden costs and hassles related to, having a fleet of rental cars, hundreds of thousands of cars they were talking about, and trying to maintain that in the EV space. And, above and beyond that, from the consumer perspective, which a lot of EV manufacturers are finding out, not that many people are really interested. It just wasn't the sales item. It wasn't the practical fleet maintenance item that he expected it to be. And this is the gentleman who's going to fall on the sword over that decision.
Well, I think it's really interesting, Dan, because, let's speak plainly here. When you go to a rental car company and you want to rent a car, you just want to get from point A to point B quickly and not worry about it. And what's easy is getting gas. It sounds neat to have an electric car and doing that, but I got to be honest with you, I have zero interest. We have a hybrid. It's not like I'm not familiar with plugging a car in and doing that, but I don't want to find myself in an area where I'm not familiar with, that I don't know where the plugging charging stations are. I don't want to find myself in a bad neighborhood, or you just want to go to a gas station, pump up, and drive away and get to where you need to go. It doesn't really make sense right now. It's not commonplace enough, and the charging, it could take you 20 minutes, it could take you 40 minutes. You could be stranded. And, EV was just not the way to go for this. I think that, I don't know, it was a great idea, and it got the guy the job, but it definitely helped him lose it too.
Yeah, Biden administration had previously lauded Hertz for its investment in EVs as the president made an aggressive push to broadly electrify the transportation sector as a part of his climate agenda. And, where's the handout, Joe? Where's the help?
Careful, Seth. There's probably going to be one. Don't ask for it.
Well, this is not the first time that Hertz has really fallen off of a cliff. Let's say that. If you go back a few years, it was just like 2020. And I don't even remember what the news was, but it was delisted. It just completely failed. And it was kind of a surprise for most of the people out there that were following it. And so it delisted, and then, I have to assume that they got bought, money moved in, they kept, keep the advertising. Everybody knows Hertz out there. That's a smart move. But apparently, in some kind of a push to, get ahead, this is what they chose to do. And I think it's exactly right. I just, I don't think people in general are thinking this is what they want to do, unless it's a Tesla. Now, that was an interesting conversation when we were in Vegas, and our 7-year-old is at the rental car agency, darn near throwing a tantrum because he wanted a Tesla. And I was like, no, we're not getting the Tesla.
I don't know about you guys, but every time I'm returning a rental car, and you're just in that extreme rush to the airport, right? I mean, the hinges are falling off, you got bags falling out, kids are crying, you're just trying to get on the plane. The last thing you need to do is take a half an hour stop with that motley crew standing around with nothing to do while you're charging the car, right? I mean, that just seems like an absolute
you have to
nightmare.
Return it not full. Yeah.
Oh my word! Yeah, no way. I'm done. I wouldn't. They sold a third of their fleet, according to this article. They should sell the whole thing. I mean, this is a total flop.
Well, speaking of done, Ben & Jerry's owner loses its taste for ice cream. Sabrina Cerruti brings us this from the Wall Street Journal. And Unilever is who owns Ben & Jerry and several other brands like Popsicle and Magnum, and they're a conglomerate. But apparently they've decided that ice cream is not where it's at for the company. And they've got, lots of, actually some of the brands are very recognizable, but some of them I'm like Tresemme. I have no idea what that is. And but the Talenti and Breyers and Klondike are all part of their walls, are all part of their branding. But, freezer space is at a premium when you go to the grocery store. And apparently with the new diet drugs out there, this one blew me away. The diet drugs seem to have people eating yogurt and other healthy alternatives. Now, that sounds more like brainwashing or just good, healthy common sense than a drug.
Yeah, the freezer thing was interesting about this. There's a couple things I found interesting, but part of their issue is they're trying to reduce their carbon footprint. And
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. The freezer capacity, the freezer usage that ice cream requires is actually making up 10% of the carbon footprint for Unilever, which, like you said, is a massive conglomerate. Ice cream in general doesn't represent nearly that much of their business. So they have a disproportionate carbon issue with being in the ice cream world.
Well, from a stock perspective, I've kind of been, I follow Unilever. It's not a stock I currently own or have any clients in that I know of. But the stock has really struggled. The company as a whole has struggled. I mean, in the last, 5 years, the highest that stock has hit is just shy of $64 a share. It's trading around 49 and change right now. And that's up from its low, which, basically somewhere around low 43. So it's up about 15% or so since its low back in October of this last 2022. It's really struggled. This company's all over the place, and for a company that's profitable and has a yield, its P/E ratio is under 20. These are some detailed factors, but it's a stock I watch because there's a lot of things that Unilever does that are like staples. I literally think ice cream's a staple. In America, ice cream is a story. It's connected with every holiday. It's connected with every
the backbone,
vacation.
It's the heart and soul.
Like anywhere you go, like, hey, we went to the beach. Oh, let's go get ice cream. Oh, we went to the whatever. Let's get ice cream afterwards. So you don't go out to dinner with people. Sometimes you go out for ice cream. So it's shocking that they're going to dump an $8.6 billion arm of their company. That, by the way, sugar's addicting and is going to kill everyone. But people still use it all the time. I just think it's shocking because I think people are going to take the diet drugs and then they're going to go eat ice cream more. So I think this is kind of interesting. Will it help the overall company's, financials? They talk about the layoffs and everything like that. I'm just curious. I'm not really sure where this thing falls on from a stock perspective and an investment perspective, but I guess time will tell because they've made the decision. So
coming next from Yahoo Finance, Connie Kim, thank you for this. Fannie Mae predicts that higher mortgage rates will stick around longer. And this article came out just before the Fed meeting from yesterday, which validated some of the expectation here in the article that the Fed was holding steady on rates. And future forecasting into the year, there was an expectation, initially at maybe 4 reductions this year. Then it was 3. Now with an additional pause and a basic declaration that they're not going to even consider one until June at the soonest. Now the market's pricing in maybe 2 rate decreases through year end. So that's news that affects the mortgage world, of course. That there was an expectation this year that mortgage rates would in fact drop in line with the Fed move. But as that's been kind of postponed with some pretty sticky inflation data, it looks like mortgage rates will remain, roughly where they're at least through year end.
I was looking at this and just thinking to myself, man, it's like to think that they're talking about dropping, or they think mortgage rates are going to drop to a 30-year fixed at 6.4%. I mean, that's just astronomical to me, considering what we've experienced for the last decade, right, guys? To sell your house and you have a 3% or so mortgage or whatever it is that hundreds of millions of people have, or whatever 100 million people have, to think about selling that and then moving to a 6.4, you're talking about buying a smaller home for the same money. That's really what you're talking about. I mean, there's going to be some impact. People don't want to sell their house unless they're going to make money, unless they have to move. It's just an interesting piece for me. Now, it is also interesting, as I was going through this article, it says Fannie Mae expects purchase mortgage origination volume to be $1.4 trillion. So they expect $1.4 trillion in new mortgages in 2024, representing a 12% growth from last year, but it's down from the prior forecast. So they do think that we're going to be more mortgages than last year. So that's the anticipation of those lower rates. I think that's interesting. Banks don't want to lower rates. It's really hard for banks to lower rates because that's their profit, right? So they only lower rates because they have to be competitive with everyone else. And the Fed's going to have to really push rates down for banks to really squeak. They're always going to be lagging whatever the Fed does for as long as they possibly can. You know, if the Fed lowers rates a quarter point, you know, they're going to be a few months out and they're going to drop a quarter point. The Fed's going to lower half a point. They're going to wait a few more months and they're going to only do a quarter point. The banks want to magnify their profits as much as possible. Don't blame them. But this is going to be a major lagger in the industry of the mortgage space. And I think for anyone to think that, hey, the Fed lowers rates, I'm going to refinance in 6 months. No, it's probably a year or two out, and they're going to have to keep those rates low and threaten to lower rates again to even give you a chance, if you bought a house last year, to refinance.
That's a really interesting point. And as you were talking that through, I realized there was one place where you would see an immediate decrease in the rates, and that's on the CDs that they're offering, or the interest on their checking
exactly.
account.
They're like, oh, rates went down, so we're lowering our thing. What about your
Gotta
mortgage?
lower that one. Gotta lower that
we
one.
don't know what they're really going to do long term with those rates. So
Yeah, it's the 10-year note over there. It's not really, trading at the level we need to see. So it's so funny to just see all this stuff unfold. And as we were talking about, or the article was talking about, not seeing these rate decreases and inflation actually increasing. Well, I need a button over here, kind of like Jim Cramer, where I can just smash it, buy, sell. But this one's just going to say, "Told you so."
Well, I've never met a banker I don't like. Like, the bankers are always really nice people. I mean, you ever met a banker where you're like, it's because they're always happy. They're charging you more than they should. The loan they gave you, they're giving you less interest than they should on the CD they let you invest in, and they don't pay you to store your money at the bank, and they don't own anything. I mean, it's literally these guys are just pushing money and getting paid a ton of money. I mean, that's what the Fed does too. Hey, guys, have you ever met a banker you don't like?
I'm trying to think of the last time I met a banker. They all seem to be like bots and AI. You guys, we have got to take a quick break. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And speaking of smashing buttons, why don't you go ahead and smash the subscribe button and give us a like, give us a listen. Pass on this show to somebody that you love and you care about, that you're really wanting to help them, take some steps forward in their financial literacy and in their growth and their financial journey. And we love the opportunity to help you out here at Money on Tap. We're going to get into it here in just a minute. You're listening to Money on Tap.
Hello, everyone. This is Dan Mickelon of Brayshaw Financial Group. Are you looking for professional guidance to kickstart your investing journey? Look no further. Brayshaw Financial Advisors are here to help. Our team of experts will provide you personalized advice tailored to your financial goals. Visit us at BrayshawFinancial.com today and schedule your free consultation. Brayshaw Financial, investing made easy.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Yes, we are. We are talking about that young money. And this is a guide to the next generation of wealth or wealth builders that are coming up through the ranks. First of all, just a absolute recognition of who you are right now. Like if you're a parent right now or a grandparent or a friend who cares, congratulations, because you right now are doing what few and far between people do to be successful. You know, you are paying attention and you're engaging in your own personal knowledge, building your financial literacy, your vocabulary, concepts. You're adding understanding and depth to what it is that you're doing. And you've probably been raising some young little turkeys out there, like we all have been, and have a lot of fun. It's not all going to be our own children on display here on all of their failures and misgivings or successes. You know, it's a success story that you're here and that you're paying attention and that you're wanting to hand off and build something with your kids. And that's one of the greatest gifts. And what pretty much is as far as most of the parents that I know, that is a lot of the end all be all in our lives. It's like we got to launch these kids or young adults into success. And we want to see them make it on their own and thrive, not just get by, but really find their purpose and thrive. And finances is just, it's a tool that, they get to use for a part of that success. And so we're really excited to be able to, share our experience and what we've been learning and how we've been doing things differently and been successful or had failures with our children and with, or our clients have shared those experiences with us. So with that, that's what this show is all about. We're going to get into just some of the basics for you. Let's lay some groundwork. What do you say, Dan?
Yeah, I think it's groundwork is the right word for this, right? So we want to instill upon young people, just the very basics that they can take with them, get into life, and build upon, just some fundamental understanding of how to get on the right road. And it's important that, teens and young adults have some real financial literacy. So it starts with the very, very basic things like budgeting, savings, and debt management. Those are kind of the key elements to getting off to a good start. And we've all, seen mistakes be made. And, particularly with these young people, there's time to recover from that. But it's best started well if you sit them down and you get into that simple explanation. How do you begin to save? Right? Does that mean investing? Does that just mean going to the bank? I think an excellent exercise that we discussed was common to all of our childhoods is that, our parents grabbed us by the hand and led us into the bank one day when we were young and money became, something that we were expected to manage to some degree on our own. And you sat with the banker, you sat with the teller, you opened a checking account, you opened the savings account. You got familiar with the basics of, how do you balance a checkbook, or these days, what kind of app do you use to monitor your balances and, take possession of a debit card for the first time, and, how important and kind of empowering that is. But it comes with some real responsibility. So the first step is, how do you get saving? You've earned some money, you've been given some money. What do you do with it? You're old enough now, it's no longer going in the piggy bank, right? Took the piggy bank down, you busted it open, take it to the bank. Now you have some money. Now you got to understand, well, how do you budget, right? How do the ins and outflows work for you? What expenses do you begin to take on, as a young adult or a teen that become your responsibility? Obviously a shared experience with your parents, but handing off some expense to them, whether it's totally discretionary stuff or some contribution that's expected around the household, to their cell phone bill, which is a great one, or their online gaming activities, another good one. Right, so be able to shift some responsibility with that money into their hands. Understanding there's going to be fall downs and mistakes and all that, but starting early, giving these young people an understanding that you have some money, but there's some things that you need to cover with that, and then avoidance of debt. Right, don't take them down to the bank and open a credit card for them. Do not do that. Right, talking debit card. Right, so you don't want to see them start their financial lives in the hole in a significant way, because that has lifelong repercussions. That's that's not the enlightening, empowering kind of experience we hope this to be.
Well, still take him down, Dan. Oh gosh, that's hilarious. Well, yeah, if you're going to take your kid down and open up a credit card for him, it's probably the wrong first step. You guys have both said a lot of really interesting things, and I know we have, a direction we're going in this show. But I was just thinking about launching, and really, guys, the reason we're doing this show is because the big end issue is that there is a group of people, whether it's Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, whatever, that haven't launched, that haven't left home, that are still there. Mom and dad are still trying to carry the sword for them and help them through that process. And, it's a broken system. And, it's sad that, our schools, the organizations that we depend on the most teach so little about the thing that is so utterly, vitally important to someone's well-being is their financial health. I think about what the Bible talks about money constantly. And you go to Matthew and it talks about the talents. And, there are so many biblical principles around just how important money is to be managed and held well. And yet we do nothing inside the educational space to address that. I mean, it literally shocks me that we don't do that. My wife and I have really, and you guys know this, and our listeners that get to our show regularly know that I'm pretty rigid with my children when it comes to finances. But when I was a kid, my parents took me down to the bank. I opened up a passbook savings account, and every week I went down there and I put a portion of my allowance away. They also had me tithe every week in practice. They had me save every week in practice. And these are all things that I literally did. I mean, this was kind of expected. I mean, I was actually forced to tithe to teach that that's a discipline you should learn out of worship for God. And so these are all really interesting concepts, and you have to teach your kids how to do it. And, I used to, with my daughter, we used to have envelopes for her. She would get her cash and she would put a tithe envelope together, a savings envelope, and, all the different special things that she wanted. I had her title, this is what it has, and work through those things. And that's a form of budgeting. That's really what that is. And people aren't teaching that. And budgeting, even in the smallest degree, is super important. Like guys, how many times do we talk to clients and ask, do you guys have a budget? I'm just curious. Like, what do you spend your money on? And I always tell people, most of the people are like, well, I don't have a written one. I go, well, I know you have a budget because you're still in your house, so you haven't not paid your mortgage. You know what you're spending and where and when. But, we got to write it down. We have to understand and articulate to the dollar, maybe even to the penny, what your real core expenses are. We talk about those foundational expenses. And if you don't have a budget, even if it's as simple as, this is what my electric, utilities, cell phone, mortgage, rent, car payment. I mean, if you don't have those core expenses down and you could say, well, I can accept this job because this will pay me enough, you're really missing the boat, because financial literacy is not just for your children. It's for you too. It's for you to become stronger, sounder, more capable and able inside this. And I think that's one thing I'm really excited about. A lot of the principles we have is that some people are rusty on them. Some people aren't practicing them, but they're relevant for everyone. And I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I grew up in a school of very hard knocks. When I was 19 years old, I was getting ready to go to college, which I had to pay for, was not paid for, was not contributed to by my parents at all. And my mom at 19 said, you're going to college, you're packing your bags, and don't come back. Those are literally her words. To the T, pack your bags and don't come back. I was the youngest of 5. Maybe she was tired of having kids, but it was the truth of you're a big boy now. You go, you're gone. So I took that to heart in more than one way, But it was a school of hard knocks. Don't mess with Gen Xers. We didn't have it easy. People didn't lay the empathy road for us. So, but that's part of life, and a lot of people don't want to take that hard road knocks, with their kids. And I don't blame them, but I'm interested in kind of digging through this with you guys. So sorry for the long intro on my end.
Yeah, That's great. We had quite the conversation around Gen X, which all of us are, and we're before Google. We're before cell phones. We're a little different, and we know it. And some of the lessons that I learned growing up as well were very similar to. I find they're very common for most of us. It was, there was an allowance or there was, work, because we that was the deal. Is you want money, you work, and there was the tithing, and then there was the saving for the big thing that I had on my horizon. But then there was also a lot of saving that happened that wasn't that I was not allowed to touch. That was just a part of building and growing. And with that, I remember, my father introducing me to the rule of 72, which is basically, how long does it take for interest to compound and double your money, at X interest rate? So if you take 10% interest, you divide that into 72, it's 7.2 years, roughly 7 years before whatever you've invested at that 10% interest will double. And, those were key things for me that were really important, as well as, going down to the bank, actually doing business in a bank. And, and I gotta tell you, I haven't done that. I've got one that's 19 years old, and then I've got my 11-year-old and my 7-year-old, and we've done a lot of this stuff behind the background, but really engaging with even my own kids and taking them into the bank so they can see the teller, and have this experience, because, frankly, it may not stick around much longer. We're just going in that direction. I think there's some real opportunity for us to have in that. So anyways, you guys, we got to take a quick break, but we've got some real money lessons that we're going to be talking about here, as well as, just not, we've got some of the basics here, but then we've got navigating in this financial landscape, because it is a little different than what it was for most of us. So we're going to pack it in. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to Money on Tap, and this is your Young Money Show, guide to the next generation of wealth.
Are you ready to take control of your financial future? Look no further than Brayshaw Financial Group. Our team of experienced advisors is dedicated to helping beginners like you build wealth through smart investing strategies. Visit BrayshawFinancial.com today to start your journey towards financial independence. Brayshaw Financial Group, your partner in wealth creation.
You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We're talking about Young Money, a guide to next generation wealth, or wealth creation and building. So we've really kind of talked about some old school stuff, right? Back in the day when we were growing up, but we had it so hard, us Gen Xers. We had to do our chores, or we had to work, and we had to save. And that's, I do that. I make light of that, but there's definitely some opportunities to learn in that. And we realize this generation doesn't have everything easy. We get it. If that's you, just stick with us, because it's just fun. It's kind of fun to just share the experiences with you, and our hopes with those things, by the way, are not that you feel bad about, whatever you've got right now in your life, and how wonderful, all these gifts that we love for you to have, which are the video games, and, which, by the way, we grew up with as well. It was just Nintendo. It wasn't like, it wasn't a PlayStation 5 or everything else.
Do any of our, or Atari? Don't you guys remember the Atari? That's what I grew up with.
We're not completely irrelevant. We had some stuff.
I was the only kid for miles with Coleco. I got stuck with Coleco, man. That was tough.
I wished I would have had that. Anyways, you guys. So we're not trying to push you in a direction that says feel bad about this, right? What we're trying to do is ultimately we want to create some comparison here for you, because there's some stuff right now that's the same and works the same, no different. I mean, other than the way that you're probably interacting and engaging with it is a little different. For instance, that savings account and going in and seeing the teller, it's more online now. And we want to recognize that some of what you have capacity to do is just greater. You can take what it is we're talking about now and you can amplify it so much faster than we had a chance to. And so we're incredibly excited because that is opportunity. And that's what we want you to have as our next generation. From that, we just need to build some basics, which we were just talking about, that savings, right? Going to create that habit, going to start putting our money into the savings account, going to have a couple of different savings accounts. One, like me, I didn't touch it. It was there, out of sight, out of mind. Give, you're tithing. And then you're spending, right? And have those ratios in line. And as a practice, you're going to do that. After that, let's talk about debt, because it's going to happen. It is there and it's real. And there's good and there's bad about it. But we want you to be prepared.
Wow, debt is such a big conversation. And it's something that plagues every generation. It doesn't matter what age you are. Debt is an issue. And Seth, you're right on. I mean, there's good and bad debt, and it's really hard to teach your kids about debt, especially like if you use a credit card for your business and then you pay it off every month, or you use your credit card and you have to hold the debt to do something in your business to then receive the income later on. There's a lot of those conversations that exist out there. So for the first piece of conversation with your kids, you have to explain that, debt that's an investment can be good. Debt that's not an investment, that's seeking personal interest or a want, is not good. And if you're building debt out of needs that are not fulfilled by your income, that is also bad. Creates different conversations for each one of those, and they're complicated across the board. But usually what I do is I educate people that, college debt is good generally, especially if you've graduated. It's bad if you haven't. And if you're buying a house, that debt can be good, unless it says, it's an interest-only payment debt. Like that means you can't afford the home. So there's different types of ways of teaching people about kind of the studious nature of, what is the right kind of debt and how is it either healthy or unhealthy. If you can't afford your mortgage and you're hoping that you're going to grow into a house, that by no means is an educational event. It's worked for a lot of people. I know it has, but it's not traditionally something we want to teach people or to practice. I mean, right, guys? I mean, this is not... you don't go buy a house that's too expensive and then say, well, eventually I'm going to get a raise and I'll be able to afford it, so I'll live off my credit cards, where I can't do that. Now, a lot of people do that, and it's not healthy. It's not a good scenario. What's the best scenario? And guys, we talked about this the other day, was, the whole FIRE technique, financial independence, retire early, where people are minimalists. They buy the smallest house they can. They live very meagerly. They try to live off 30% of their total income. That's probably more the way I'd rather someone lean than the other way where they're overspending. I've taken college differently, and you guys know this because my kids have complained about it, but it has really paid off for them. It's paid off for us in the wellness of their scenario. But we told our kids we would help them with college with a specific intent that this is an investment we're making in you. And at any point in time, the year doesn't turn out to be an investment and it's a waste of money, I'm no longer going to trust you well enough to invest in further years. It's not a guarantee you're going to get all 4 years. It's not a guarantee you'll get a whole year even. And I'm not promising anything. You need to perform and you need to do your job, which is go get your education. And I'm paying to help you do that as an investment in your life because you're my child. And I want to invest in your life just the way I have in everything else, in sports or driving you to school or buying you clothes. I'm investing in the well-being that you are going to bring to America and be a good standing citizen, and you're going to provide and help other people become good, outstanding citizens. I mean, that's kind of the investment concept. But I also didn't pay for everything either. I gave them a very small amount of money and said, hey, listen, you make it through all 4 years. At the end of that, I'll give you another piece of money for graduating if the investment still seems like it was worth it. If you don't want to take this seriously, don't waste my money, don't waste yours, because you're going to pay for some of this too. So I look at that and say, if you walk out of college with that mentality and you say, I really want to invest in this too, then that debt is going to be healthy debt for your kids. What have you guys? I know, Dan, you were talking about that earlier too.
Yeah, I've taken a similar approach with my oldest, who's on his way off to Wentworth in Boston. I'm very proud of that achievement for him and the great grades he's earned. But we've told him that beyond the scholarships and grants he's received, which has been fantastic, that whatever the difference is to meet the level of tuition, he's going to have to take those loans out himself. And but we've agreed that we'll pay for performance. Right? You take the loan, you own the obligation. You go get the grades, and then we'll pay some of that back for you. And that's the understanding we're going to go into this with. And he accepts that challenge. I think he gets it. I haven't seen him complete the loan application yet, but we're working on that. But I think that's a good way to go about it, to keep everybody goal focused and really aimed at securing an education that's worthwhile. Because, like you said, Ben, I think the key word is that expense is massive, and it's the first real investment of his life, and that's what we've got to help him with.
I made my kids fill out their FAFSA because you have to do that to get the loan. So, I've go create your login, go do it. I mean, you should see their eyes turn when I'm like, oh, well, where do I go to log in? And well, go look it up, because that's what adults do. It's not just bringing them to the water. It's like, hey, the water's over there in that general direction. I know you can't see it from here, but go find it. So that's been an interesting thing, to the point where my son's like, hey, Dad, I already did the FAFSA. I need you to log in and do your portion. So I think it's pretty hilarious. I mean, and the fact that they're paying a portion of these bills themselves, they're engaged. Like, both of my kids are like looking at their bills, or, my daughter's out of college, but they're looking at their bills, trying to make sure that, they're getting charged correctly, because they don't want to waste their own money. Like, as one of my son said to me, he goes, oh, most of my friends don't even care what the bill is. Their parents just pay it. So whatever. It's like, but he was getting taken for on some book fee bill. And he went to the registrar's office, said, remove it. I'm not paying for this book fee, and I don't get any books out of it. So I already pay for my classes. I pay for everything else, but you're going to remove this. And they said no at first. And then he threatened to petition. He took it away, Get your kids engaged. Make them own part of it. Have them get involved. When it's their own, they're not only gonna be engaged with it, but they're gonna find their own personal, self-confidence from, financially achieving something with you. Like, it's their first step. Like, this is a win for them. This is a huge gain.
Yeah, it's a big part of our landscape. And I mean, in some of the worlds that we run in, debt is a significant tool where especially in real estate, where you're leveraging real estate to make more money. And it is very counterintuitive and goes against the flow when it's Dave Ramsey. But anybody that's in the commercial real estate world that understands how to make money in commercial real estate, debt is key in really moving the ball forward and maximizing. It's how it works in that world. And again, it's counterintuitive. So we're not talking about that, because that's great debt when you're getting into really making money with the money you've made. But we're talking about, let's stay out of this zone over here. And what are you doing? You're paying attention to your money, right? Pay attention to your money. I'm on the other side of this with you guys. I got to keep it brief, because let's just say that one of my kids had some opportunity to save some money on their car insurance and has not been doing that. And I have been paying for that bill and running those numbers and brought the conversation to the table. And it's going to get had in a different way here real soon. That's going to be a life lesson. You know what? I get it. Nobody wants to see our kids struggle. And you kids, it sucks as a parent, and it's hard. But I'm going to tell you what, that struggle or those lessons are the things that you want to earn and learn now. Learn now, because they just compound later on down the road if you're not stepping into it, right? And that's where we just want to pull the Band-Aid off, not entirely, like Ben's, mom said, pack your bags, you're out of here at 19. Maybe that's a strategy, but we're here to help, and we really want to have that engagement with you. But sometimes this is the way you got to learn, is you got to get out there and do it. And I love the experience that a recent friend of mine shared with me, where his daughter was looking to invest and was getting, her account set up, and she's very young. And we've done this with all of our kids as well. We've got individual accounts where we are investing into the stock market with them. And we're having the conversations around this. This is what we're buying. What are we doing? How does this work? And, the experience for her was she bought a pretty high-priced, high-ticket stock, and she lost quite a bit of money in that for her, a percentage of a share that was enough for her to really pay attention a little more closely. Like, what happened there? When I was able to have a conversation around her with is, diversification. How would that work? Maybe it's an ETF that has a different flavor, and we're still doing this activity, but we're diversifying. We're spreading out our risk that way. So that's a great experience for somebody. I want to bring us to a point of opportunity here. I talked about that a little while ago because guess what? You're probably going to have more than a checking and savings or a debit card, right? And you're probably going to start to have this trading account over here or a different savings account or you're like, hey, I got a high yield savings account online through whatever bank. And so as you start to accumulate more of these accounts, how do you keep it together? How do you get this perspective? Well, technology is one of those great ways that we have. We have it here at Brayshaw Financial with our clients, and you can log into your client portal and bring all your accounts together. There's other venues out there that you can start to see that and do that. But inside of that, you're going to start to be able to see things with a different lens. And we want to bring that lens to the table that allows you to navigate this landscape, because it can it can be overwhelming if we're not at the same time bringing some simplicity into our lives around this stuff. So avoiding some of these financial pitfalls and making smart choices in this, day of digital age. So let's be prepared. And you know what? Let's make financial education a part of that experience as well, right? Just get into the gym. We're going to do it in our finances as well. Speaking of paying attention, it is past time for us to take a quick break. We're going to be back with more Young Money in your guide to the next generation wealth. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Hey, this is Seth Cressman with Brayshaw Financial Group. Are you looking for a hassle-free way to invest? Look no further than Brayshaw Financial Group. With Brayshaw Financial Group, you can start investing with as little as $100 and enjoy a user-friendly platform with diverse ranges of investment options. Visit Brayshaw Financial Group and start your investment journey today. Brayshaw Financial Group, investing made easy.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are talking about Young Money, the guide to next level or next generation wealth. And it's just a really fun show for us to have. And it's honestly, there's a lot more that we would love to be able to talk about here. But as we go through some of these, high level topics with you, it's important to just understand how critical it is to really, in this whole process, to build confidence. Okay. Actually, let me take a step back. Before we get there, let's set some goals, because that's really important in this whole process of building confidence. Julian, my 7-year-old, he just last night, I've got no problems with this kid when it gets to getting after it in some ways. He made something here, and he turned around right after dinner, and he was like, I'm done with my dinner. Can I go and sell this? So we're like, let's talk about that. What are you selling? What's going on? And so he had made this thing, and he wanted to go sell it. And sure enough, he was back in like a minute, and he had already sold this toy that he made for $2. And so that's awesome. I'm like, I had a hard time, though, not stopping him from going and doing that. That's me. I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want you to fail. I don't want you to feel this. I mean, it's what, all the stuff inside of me, the voice inside of me, I had to just set it aside and say, hey, this is his experience that he gets to have. And we're here to support him. Now, the other part of that with this one, right, is he's great at doing all this stuff, loves doing that. But I will turn around and he will buy a $5 bag of Starbursts. And I have the hardest time for me holding back from saying, what are you doing? You know? And so I'm learning. Kids are teaching me. This is great. What I'm learning in this is also to take that experience, like maybe that was his goal. It's like, was that what you wanted? How long did we set a goal for that? Great. Do you feel like you got good value in that? Awesome. What else could you do if you want to take that? And what else could you do with that money right there? What other things could you buy? What other goals could you set? So instead of just, me wanting to kind of tap it down and be like, oh, that's a horrible decision, what can we do with that to really engage and grow from there? And that's one of the key concepts that wherever we're at, connected and really growing from the point that they're at. Because what they're doing, it's great. You guys, it's great. Just accept that it's wonderful for however it might be in their world for this limited time. Let's get going with this.
Yeah, the whole notion of delayed gratification, right? Have them set a goal. You can, even incentivize them, tell them you meet them halfway, as long as they get dedicated to the savings. Particularly if it's something that's a little longer range, bigger ticket item, something they really need to save for over a couple of weeks or allowance cycles or, a couple of weeks worth of work if they got a job. That's the real achievement. That builds the confidence. That's a true success. And that's a great way to be engaged and partner with your kids kind of at the infancy of this whole money experience that's critical to all of our lives.
Yeah, the feeling of financial success is something you want to instill early. I think that's a core item here. With vehicles which are super expensive, but your kid turns 16, they really want a car. What we've done is we told our kids that we would match dollar for dollar how much they save up to a certain amount, whether it was $1,000 or $2,000, to help them get into a car. But we wanted them to save for a vehicle, and we also don't want something that's going to leave them stranded on the side of the highway. So we have a little bit of an investment in it as well. But we're not just going to go buy our kid a car. Really proud of my son Sawyer. He literally scoured the kid found the end of the internet he wanted a Toyota Tacoma. He didn't care what age. He just wanted to make sure it wasn't rotted out from the bottom. He didn't care the paint, this, that, and the other thing. He just wanted a V6 stick. So he wanted a manual transmission. He found literally the least expensive one in the United States of America, I swear. And because he had a budget and he knew that was the number he had. And it was a miracle. I was like, dude, you're not going to find a car for the amount of money you have to spend on this that's going to be of any. It was just some guy's car. He had taken care of it and, hadn't really used it that much, but it was in good shape underneath, but the paint really needed to be redone. So, the kid took a lot of time and effort to really do that. And I was like, man, I'm so proud of you. That's incredible that you were able to do that. Encouraging someone and then them feeling like, hey, I own a car now that I don't owe any debt on. What a fantastic feeling that they get to have. And they get to have that feeling for the rest of their life. And next time they buy a car and they have debt on it, they'll be like, I don't like that. And that gratification of ownership it's addicting. It's a powerful, wonderful thing that we feel inside that it's like, wow, that's mine. You don't want to teach kids to have the feeling of materialism is the best thing. You want to have the ownership piece is the best thing. You want to have that emotional feeling.
This has been a really great show with you guys. You've been listening to Money on Tap, and we've been talking about Young Money, Guide to Next Generation Wealth. These are some of these are really close to our heart. Clearly, we've all got kids at different levels. We've got different experiences, and we love pouring into our own children and our own family and each other's as well. And we really are grateful for the opportunity to share this with you. If you're new, not just to Money on Tap, but if you're new to saving money or, building wealth or wondering, how do I get started? Guess what? You can call us here at Money on Tap at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And we are so grateful and welcome the opportunity to partner with you to start taking those steps towards being a successful investor. And right now, give yourself some credit because you are a successful investor. You've invested this time with us here today. You've learned something new. You have something to be able to go learn more about, and you've engaged. And that's critical. So, hey, congratulations. We can't wait to be back here next week with you. And in the meantime, grab this show. Go subscribe to the podcast. Share it with somebody that you love and you care about. And give us a call at Money on Tap. We'll see you.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of Osaic Wealth Incorporated. Osaic Wealth Incorporated and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.